Hello and welcome back. What I have for you today is very, very interesting and it's very auspicious. It's a biography of the man who saw through time. That's Nostradamus. Let's begin. The rich, actively fulfilled life of the French prophet Michael de Nostrodamous is the story of genius not only in its rarest but its most modern form. His ability foreshadowed a hope, now gaining a first hearing in this our day, that scientists may, in some not too remote tomorrow, discover principles of mental forces which will permit every man to realize within himself a reflection of the powers of Nostradamus. Many prophets have crossed the brightly lighted stage of history and posed to utter some astounding beat of prescience, but they are seldom remembered for more than a single episode. Some ray of strange illumination that for a moment spotlighted the fate of a throne or a battle. Actually, there exist but two written documents of prophecy which have pictured a grand-scale continuity of history and unfolded a tapestry of world futures. One of these is, of course, the mighty word of Scripture. The other is the cryptic remnant of Europe's fate. The Centuries, written by Nostradamus for Bengal Troubadour of Destiny. No one knows as yet what possesses shape a prophet. Know how it is that to remembrance of things past, he adds, remembrance of things that are to come. Perhaps the Red Queen knew more about it than most. Now, let's begin with that chapter 1. That's part 1 of his life story. A prophet is born. It was in nearly a Christmas of the year 1503 that San Rami, the ancient provincial town, namesake of the saint who baptized Clovis on Christmas Day, was asked there with preparations for the coming activities. Everywhere in town and countryside, people stopped in the sunshine to greet and talk of plans for calendar, the Romance word which provincials still use for Christmas. Great ladies in silken finery, blithe young knights attended by their squires riding down from chateaux in the hills, peasant women in full skate and bright-colored bodices, jolly monks, dark-eyed girls, and sober town fathers, all were preparing for the year's greatest celebration. The town square men talked about Yuloks. Some who owned groups were going to cut down an olive or an almond tree that was too old to be worth keeping. But more will go to the forest to cut their logs and drag them home behind uncoupled oxen as men had done since the days of the Druids. San Remi housewives crowded the market stalls, buying almonds and honey to make Christmas nougat. They chatted of New Year's gifts in the making and gossiped about holiday masques at the governor's palace at Aix. Troubadours tuned their harps and memorized ramons. Through church windows drifted the voices of choir voice practicing charismatic music, chanting their welcome to the Son of Man, singing of peace on earth. What then as now seldom prevailed. The ancient town, gay with the season, little imagined, list of all the expectant parents that this child born in their midst that day would bring to his birthplace a fame enduring for centuries. Who then could foresee that a future Europe with such his words were an answer to the grim riddle of its fate? Over the midi town, the stars has taken stands to endow this infant with stranger wisdom than prophet had held since the faraway years of those who foretold the forthcoming of the Christ. On this, the 14th day of December by the Julian calendar, near to the 12 hours of noon, so the chronicle runs, the son of Jerks and reigned Nostrodam was born. The voice of the bronze bell speaking the hour from the town belfry was carried on breeze fragrant of meadows. In the hearts of the parents the bell notes chime the olden gratitude. Unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. How long the family of baby Michel de Nostrodam has been settled in province is not known, but long enough for them to assimilate it into the annals of the country, to have made their contributions of science and service, and to reap the reward of prestige. The statement that Michael was of Jewish birth has been insistently asserted by most commentators. There seems to be no warrant for this outside of unverified rumors after his lifetime. His race is not important except in relation to his prophecies, but it is of essential interest to know whether he was the last inheritor of the grand Hebrew tradition of prophecy, or has the Gentile race, lacking such tradition, really produced one prophet of distinction in whom they can take pride and whose forecasts are concerned with their destiny? One who, if not comparable to the sublime poetry and the exaltation of the prophets of Israel, can be compared with them in the accuracy and the authority of his vision. Nostradamus, in his letter of dedication to King Henry II, speaks of the biblical computation of years. He says, I hold that the scripture takes them to be solar. To a scholar, this should be proof enough that Nostradamus did not have Jewish background. If he had, he could not have escaped knowing that the Jewish calculations were always according to the lunar calendar. Jane M. de Chabigny, Doctor of Theology, Magistrate of Beaune, presumably dependable, was the close friend and the pupil of Nostradamus. His biographical sketch of the prophet is the only first-hand account still available that has been handed down. He makes no mention of Jewish descent. He writes, his grandfathers, maternal and paternal, had a reputation as great savants in mathematics and medicine, one being physician to Turin, king of Jerusalem and Sicily, and the Count of Probis, the other of Jean, Duke of Calabria, son of King Rein. This closed the mouths of the envious who, because they are misinformed, have reflected upon his birth. The 16th century was a period of bitter anti-Semitism and general intolerance. Jews, it is true, were not persecuted in Provence, and many of them rose to wealth and secure standing there. Had Nostradamus been a Jew, his reputation may not have suffered from it in the place of his birth, but it will have suffered as his fame spread to larger fields, particularly Paris. During his lifetime, his enemies called him charlatan and sorcerer. Had he been vulnerable to the accusation, he would certainly have been branded as a Jew by attackers, overlooking no point that could be raised against him. Dr. Trippius Granseres is one of the early commentators who stated that all his life he had been in contact with people who either knew all about Nostradamus or through the deed. Likewise makes no mention of Jewish descent. In short, we can say Nostradamus is not a Jew. His concern was how God could reveal himself to a man of merely average social position. He said that this wonder agitated the minds of many people who admired Nostradamus as a prophet. This was not because the hasty conscious Renaissance had forgotten the birth of the son of the carpenter, but because they had reconciled his origin with their own social standard. Perny Blanches of Century, a 16th century work on heraldry, is at pains to inform its readers that the 12 apostles were all gentlemen of blood, reduced to servile work only through misfortune. When Nostrodamous visited the court of Henry II as a king's guest, he was accorded almost the honor of a ranking personage and lodged in the palace of a prince cardinal of the blood. Henry will have known through his provincial governor, a lifelong friend of the prophet, the history and understanding of the Nostrodamous family. It is to be feared that he would not have received the prophet with such public acclaim if the family position had not met with his approval. King Green had a curious Turco-Arab complex. He preferred people of such blood and custom above all others. Consequently, his court for half a century attracted everyone who had a drop of the blood or any of its association and culture. Every Levantine and Arab who had something to sell and the price of the trip came there with his wares. If the subject wanted to put anything across, he had to make the king an instant present. Rini dressed himself and the court in oriental costume, and his Turkish and Arabian masques were famous. One amusing incident of Rini's brilliance in such matters concerns a grandfather of Nostrodamous. Rini's queen had a laundress, Charlotte, the Turk. In some way, Charlotte injured her leg. Anywhere else, she would have been too far below the salt to rate attention from the royal physician. But because of Charlotte's Turkish blood, the knight thought nothing too good for her. His own doctor, none other than Dr. Nostrodamous, was ordered to attend her with all care, which presumably he did. It is logical to suppose that the land grandfathers of Nostrodamous contributed in some way to the king's passion for Turks and Arabs, and held his patronage to some extent through superiority in the kind of law and the training he must respected and valued. Young Michael's earliest recollections of his parents' home will center about its cheerful, fragrant kitchen, which, typical of all provincial homes in the 16th century, was the room where both the domestic and the social life was carried on. The center and symbol of the room's activity, with the great fireplace, majestic caverns holding a bank fire that had never gone out since first his father and mother came there to live. Shining pots and pans of brass hung low from the mantel shelf, convenient for his mother to bake her delicious bread, cook thick, nourishing stews, or roast a fowl. At either angle of the fireplace was an oak settle where the grandfathers liked to laze and talk when they came to visit. Across the room stood the puppet. Atop this was the long, flaring wooden tray in which his mother mixed and kneaded the bread. In one corner was a cupboard with shelves and drawers holding all manner of household goods. This, like the puppet, was of strong, deep-toned oak. Michael knew every line of the severe cabin in geometrical design, which caught the firelight on its mellow world. I'm now here to give you the designs of Nostrodamous' home. I'm to tell you the purposes. I'm to tell you who he is, what he has prophesied, and what has come true. Unforgettable too, the first time his mother took him to Mass at the ancient church. Through the great doors, other than the Gothic spire, into the lofty vastness of dim light, he had clung affrighted to his mother's hand, staring into the rich misery of dusk and gold and stained glass saints. Kneeling, he had looked up to the carved Virgin and the tapers-like flowers at her feet. The notes of the organ and the high clear chant of the choir boys enfolded him, drew him with ecstasy, as if to his mother's breast. It was source and beginning of his passionate, unswerving observance and devotion to the Roman ritual from which he never deviated throughout his life. Such observations was to him never a duty. It was the sacred embroidery of his delight in God. Another ritual that captivated young Michael was that which pertained to his father's business. He could not remember the time when he had not been fascinated by the things on his father's writing table. The pewter ink well, with the long quill standing at attention in the small side holes, the little bowl of clean sand, and the rolls of white sheepskin neatly disposed, called his hands to touch and try them. His mind observed and pigeonholed with childish literalness all that went on about him. It was his initiation, the beginning of his interest in affairs of state that were so ancient his later years. Here was the acorn that grew into the tree of the centuries. It was the charm of these early recollections that kept Nostrodamous, the man, always a small town boy, by inclination as he was by birth. In his day, as in ours, most people were the beads of steel fooled upon by the glamour magnets of the great cities. The complex brilliance of cities and their marriage of opportunity were woven into the dream of youth and the ambitions of manhood. And in France, all roads led to Paris. Michael remained curiously immune to his lure. He learned early to prize the smaller world of the town that can be compassed in its entirety, its biggest known and studied against the background of the generations. Here in province where his personal interest, these were his people. He was a strong boy, quick and active, full of the eager vitality of youth. His grandfather set him early at his task of learning, but being physicians, they wisely allowed him plenty of leisure for boyish adventure, arranging the countryside under the midday sunshine. There was a deeply felt bond between him and his lovely provincial country. Boy and man, he never wanted to be away from it for long. The breeze of its perfume and past drew him always back to its ancient, fertile valleys watered by winding streams below the lift of alpine hills. As a child, he learned the seasons by the pink bloom of almond trees, the dawn green of the olive, the gold of harvests, and the blood purple of vineyards. And always there was music accompanying the beauty of nature's drama, harp and lute, dancing and song also. For province is a land set to music by the troubadours. The genius of the troubadours made an early and lasting impression on Michael and his brother. The famous lays which told of the honor, the chivalry, the high adventure of the heroes of Provence were captivating to the imagination of the romantic youngsters. Nor had it been long since these poets had gone their way, singing into the past. Their patron, the minstrel monarch Rain, had been the last to go. Their memory was evergreen through the treasure of their songs, intimately known and sung by all of high and low degree. Michael Jane had them with the nursery rhymes. Le Roman de Renat seems to have made the deepest impression on Michael. Perhaps because it is an allegory in which the characters are animals and the plot tells of their struggle for porous leadership. Cunning and hypocrisy are pitted against boast, and weakness as usual lures out. Nostradamus, in the centuries, used the same animals, denoting the same qualities as symbols of the contending powers of Europe. The wolf, the bear, The lion, the fox, the eagle, the stag all play their parts again in his minstrelsy of destiny. Michael's brother was gifted with a great voice. The home rang with Jane's singing of the Roman de la Rose, the Chanson de Roland, and other celebrated lays at Fabliox. Jane, in later life, followed the prosaics through a profitable career of attorney for the Parliament of Earls. But as his real contribution, he left behind him a history of the troubadours, a monumental tome entitled Lives of the Most Famous Ancient Provincial Poets Who Flourished in the Times of the Counts of Provence. Some say that the songs of the troubadours weakened the spirit and resistance of Provence. If so, it was in the sense in which today the most sensitive standards of civilization are at the mercy of aimed foes. If God will only send peace, cries Nostradamus in the centuries. He learned his ideals and peace and honor and gentle manners from the minstrels of old Provence. Nostradamus refers particularly to the long influence of grace upon Provence in one of his quants. No. The greatest singularity was the absence of armed men and soldiers in this peaceful country. In England, no one stayed without his long bow, sword, and buckler. In France, the hind wore armor even betwixt the sills of the plop. In Germany, you could not look along a mile of road without seeing clouds of dust from which emerged waving feathers and flashing armor. But in Provence, all was quiet and peaceful, as if the music of the land had lulled to sleep all wrathful passions. Now and then a mounted cavalier will pass, half at saddle bow or carried by an attendant, attesting his character as troubadour. The short sword, worn on the left thigh, was for show rather than use. Beside its dance and provincial song and sunburnt myth, there is in this country another kind of life, silent but no less vital, one that touched profoundly the spirit of young Michael and which permeates the centuries. It is the life of the ancient past. Provence is an old land where people and races have come and gone, yet not passed utterly away. Long dead creeds and customs, rooted deep in antiquity, survive entranced. Celts, Romans, Phoenicians, Greeks, Goths, all have left their traces, blended now in the Christian race. Nostradamus refers particularly to the long influence of grace upon Provence in one of his quatrains. That's in 1975. From the regions of Epirus and Thracia, people in misfortune shall come by sea, seeking help of France. The same people who have left in Provence their perpetual trace in the survivals of their dress and laws. Across the countryside and in the cities rise the pallor of marble roofs and monuments, triumphal arcs, crumbling amphitheatres, delicate fountains, ghost peopled by the shades of their builders. In such memory-haunted spots, the whispering speech of the past reaches only ears that are attuned to its mysterious language. Michael, sensitive even in childhood to the enigma of past and future held in the eternal now, felt the spell of these remnants of a mighty past. He grew up in the midst of two worlds, the living present of his own day in the majestic deed of the long ago. The first gave him its earthy warmth, its gaiety, its steady common sense. The other opened to him its secret realm, serene, imperiously aloof, where within its twilight lay dreaming the sword of Caesar, the sails of Greece and Carthage, and the golden bracelets of the gods. This is the complete of episode 1. Let's meet in episode 2 of Nostrodamous. The prophecies has been fulfilled by Nostrodamous, the man who sees through time. Thank you, and don't forget to hit on subscribe button. Click on notification again so that you receive